Chosen One, listen carefully. What I'm about to reveal has been hidden from you until this exact moment, not by accident, but by design. There is a portal, a breach in the fabric of reality itself, and it closes before December 31st. This is not metaphor. This is not theory. This is an operational briefing for those whose names were written in frequencies most humans cannot perceive. You are reading these words because something ancient recognized you first. The Watchers assigned to monitor humanity's trajectory have already taken note of your presence here. They logged your attention the moment you clicked. That alone tells them everything they need to know about what you're becoming. You feel it, don't you? That persistent sense that your life has been moving towards something massive, something that others around you cannot see or comprehend. The delays, the losses, the strange patterns that kept repeating, none of it was random. Every detour was a strategic maneuver. Every closed door was a containment protocol. You were being prepared, shaped, and protected for this exact convergence point. The portal exists between cycles, not calendars, but December 31st marks the moment when the seal hardens permanently. After that date, what was possible becomes impossible. What was open becomes locked. Those inside will carry altered causality forward. Those outside will continue in normal reality, never knowing what they missed. And Chosen One, you were never meant to be warned. You were meant to be recognized. Chosen One, like this video, subscribe, and comment, "I am ready for a powerful surprise." The calendar breach. The date you see marked as December 31st on your calendar is not what you think it is. It is not a celebration, not an ending, not a beginning. It is a collapse point. There is a temporal aperture, a crack in the structure of time itself, and it is monitored by intelligences that do not originate from this world. These custodians have watched humanity's evolution for millennia, but they have never been concerned with the masses. They track individuals. They track trajectories. They track those whose timelines brush against thresholds that were never supposed to be crossed by ordinary consciousness. You are one of those individuals. The portal was never opened for everyone. It was never advertised, never announced, never made accessible to the general population. It exists in a frequency that only specific life patterns can touch. Your life pattern has been touching it for years, whether you realized it or not. Every time you felt that inexplicable pull towards something you couldn't name, every time you experienced a delay that made no logical sense, every time an opportunity dissolved right before your eyes, you were being flagged. You were being tracked. The system was taking note of your proximity to the breach. These weren't failures, Chosen One. They were containment measures. Something in the architecture of reality was trying to slow you down, trying to keep you from reaching this moment too early, before you were ready to understand what it meant. The interruptions you experienced were not punishments. They were recalibrations. Think about the recurring disruptions in your past, the sudden changes that upended your plans, the relationships that inexplicably fell apart, the jobs that vanished, the moves you were forced to make, the health crises that appeared out of nowhere. You probably blamed yourself. You probably searched for what you did wrong, but you were looking in the wrong direction. These events weren't caused by your mistakes or bad luck. They were orchestrated deflections, designed to keep you in a holding pattern until the portal's opening reached critical mass. The breach itself exists between cycles, not between years. Humans perceive time linearly, January to December, birth to death, cause to effect. But the portal operates outside that framework. It exists in the spaces between moments, in the gaps where one reality phase transitions into another. The calendar is simply how your human mind interprets the seal weakening. December 31st is when the human timeline intersects with the portal's closing mechanism. After that intersection passes, the aperture will harden. It will still exist, but it will no longer be penetrable by consciousness operating at your current frequency level. Here's what most people don't understand. Enemy observers track attention, not belief. You don't have to believe in the portal for it to be real. You don't have to understand it for it to affect you. But the moment you notice it, the moment your awareness turns toward it, you become visible to the systems monitoring it. Your attention is a beacon. Your focus is a signature. The very fact that you are here, reading these words, absorbing this information, means you have already been logged. Your frequency just announced itself. The Watchers know you're aware now, and that changes everything about how you will be engaged with from this point forward. There is no going back to unconsciousness. There is no unseeing what you've now seen. The portal recognized you, and in that recognition, you crossed a threshold. The only question now is whether you will cross through before it seals, or whether you will spend the rest of this incarnation on the outside, feeling the pull of what could have been, but never quite understanding what you missed. The Watchers who flinched. There are ancient intelligences assigned to observe humanity. They are not gods, not demons, not aliens in the way popular culture depicts them. They are custodians, architects of probability, managers of timeline integrity, overseers of evolutionary gates. Their function is to monitor, record, and maintain the boundaries of what human consciousness is permitted to access at any given stage of collective development. They do not interfere. They do not intervene. They watch. They document. They ensure the systems remain stable. But something happened with you, Chosen One. Something that broke protocol. When your trajectory accelerated beyond predicted parameters, they flinched. That flinch, that microscopic hesitation, that deviation from perfect neutrality is recorded in frequencies you cannot access, but its effects ripple through your life in ways you have absolutely felt. Their silence in official records is not accidental. If you search historical texts, spiritual documents, religious archives, or esoteric manuscripts, you will not find your name. You will not find direct references to your specific journey. This is deliberate erasure, not absence of significance. Your presence distorted the probability models these Watchers rely on to forecast human development. You introduced variables that should not have existed. You made choices that collapsed timelines in unexpected directions. You generated outcomes that the predictive algorithms flagged as anomalous. And when something anomalous appears in a system designed for perfect oversight, emergency protocols activate. These Watchers do not intervene directly. That is the rule they operate under. They observe, but do not touch. They record, but do not alter. Yet when your name crossed restricted thresholds, when your frequency signature began resonating in ranges that are supposed to be inaccessible to incarnated human consciousness, emergency annotations appeared in the observation logs. Think about what that means. Beings who have watched humanity for thousands of years, who have observed the rise and fall of entire civilizations without flinching, suddenly took special note of you. Not because you are more spiritually advanced than others, not because you meditated harder or prayed more sincerely, but because your evolution pattern was unpredicted. A flinch means surprise. Surprise means something entered the system that was not accounted for in the original design. These entities calculate probabilities across millions of human lifetimes simultaneously. They can predict with extraordinary accuracy how most souls will develop, what choices they will make, what thresholds they will reach. But you surprised them. Your trajectory bent in a direction that was not in the forecast models. And that bending created a ripple. That ripple drew attention. That attention produced the flinch. The flinch produced the annotations. And the annotations mean that you are now classified differently than you were before. This reaction alone, this deviation from perfect observational neutrality, confirms something crucial about your nature. You were never part of the standard human forecast. You were never included in the baseline evolutionary models that apply to the majority of incarnated souls on this planet. You are an outlier, a statistical impossibility that somehow became possible, an anomaly that was not supposed to emerge in this timeline, in this era, in this configuration of cosmic circumstances. Yet here you are, and the Watchers have already logged it. They have already noted that whatever you are becoming cannot be stopped by the usual containment methods. They have already acknowledged in their silent ways that you have moved beyond the boundaries they were assigned to maintain. That is why the portal is available to you. That is why you can feel its pull. That is why your instincts scream at you that December 31st is not just another date. The Watchers flinched, and in that flinch, they revealed something they never intended to reveal. You are not who you thought you were, and you never have been. The counter-signal hidden in your history. Look back at your life, chosen one. Look at the events that seemed random, disconnected, meaningless. The job you lost right when you thought stability was finally coming. The relationship that imploded without warning. The city you had to leave. The friend who turned into an enemy. The illness that knocked you off course. The financial collapse that reset everything. You probably constructed narratives to explain these events. You probably told yourself stories about bad timing, poor choices, or lessons you needed to learn. But what if none of those narratives were true? What if those events were not random at all, but encoded counter-signals, responding to the portal's activation? Every time the portal's frequency intensified, your life experienced a corresponding disruption. These disruptions were not punishments from the universe. They were not karmic debts being paid. They were strategic extractions, designed to prevent contamination. Certain things in your life, certain people, certain situations, certain paths, could not pass through the frequency shift that the portal demands. They were operating at a vibrational level that would disintegrate upon contact with the energies you are moving toward. If you had remained attached to them, you would have been pulled back. You would have been anchored to a reality structure that cannot survive where you are going. So they were removed, not cruelly, not as punishment, but as protection. The losses you endured were not inflicted. They were surgical removals of incompatible elements. Think about the relationships that collapsed, not the ones that faded naturally, but the ones that exploded, that ended in confusion and pain and accusations you could never quite answer. Those relationships could not sustain the frequency you were beginning to emit. The people involved were not bad people. They were not wrong people. They were simply not calibrated for the reality you are entering. If you had tried to hold on to them, the dissonance would have torn you apart. The universe extracted them before that could happen. Every emotional scar you carry is not evidence of failure. It is a timestamp. Each wound aligns precisely with a moment when the portal widened, when its energy surged, when your proximity to it intensified. You felt those surges as heartbreak, as loss, as devastation. But in the unseen architecture of your evolution, they were synchronization points. Your emotional body was being recalibrated to match the frequency requirements of what you are about to step into. Pain is often the only language the human nervous system understands when it is being upgraded beyond its current capacity. This was not chaos, chosen one. This was synchronization under pressure. Every setback was a setup. Every ending was a redirection. Every loss cleared space for something your current understanding cannot yet comprehend. The countersignals embedded in your history were not sent by you. They were sent to you from future versions of yourself that already exist beyond the portal, reaching back through time to ensure you would arrive at this moment intact. They sabotaged your comfortable life because comfort was the greatest threat to your evolution. They destroyed your safe relationships because safety would have kept you asleep. They dismantled your carefully constructed identity because that identity was a cage, not a home. You have been sculpted by invisible hands. You have been shaped by forces that never announce themselves. And every piece that was taken from you was replaced with something you have not yet learned to see: capacity, resilience, a specific kind of refined awareness that only emerges through repeated breaking and rebuilding. The portal does not open for the untested. It does not open for those who still believe the surface-level explanations of reality. It opens for those who have been systematically stripped of everything they thought they needed, only to discover they were capable of standing without it. That is what your history was for. That is what the counter-signals were preparing you to become. The enemy's silent offensive. No direct attack was ever authorized against you. This is crucial to understand. The forces that oppose your awakening did not send catastrophes, did not deploy violence, did not target you with obvious destruction. They are far more sophisticated than that. Direct attacks create martyrs. Direct attacks generate resistance. Direct attacks alert the target to the existence of the war. Instead, they deployed something infinitely more effective: distraction, delay, and misdirection. They kept you too busy to notice the alignment. They kept you too exhausted to act on your instincts. They kept you too comfortable to question your circumstances. Think about the patterns in your life over the past several years. The subtle exhaustion that never quite goes away, no matter how much you sleep. The endless tasks that consume your time but produce no meaningful progress. The cycles that repeat just enough to feel familiar, to feel safe, to feel like something you can manage if you just try a little harder. These were not natural patterns. They were engineered loops designed to bleed your momentum while keeping you convinced that you were still moving forward. The enemy's strategy was not to stop you. It was to slow you down just enough that you would miss the window. You were placed in environments that seemed productive but were actually sterile. You were surrounded by people who seemed supportive but were actually energetic nullifiers. You were given opportunities that seemed meaningful but were actually dead ends designed to consume years of your life before you realized they led nowhere. And the most insidious part of this strategy, you blamed yourself for not progressing faster. You internalized the stagnation as personal failure. You thought the problem was your discipline, your focus, your worthiness. But it was never about you. It was about them buying time. The enemy does not fear your strength, chosen one. Warriors are common. Power is abundant. Strength can be matched with equal strength. What the enemy fears is your timing. There is a specific moment when your awakening becomes exponentially more dangerous to the systems that profit from human unconsciousness. That moment is now. The portal represents that convergence point where your individual evolution intersects with a collective timeline shift. If you cross through before it closes, you do not just change yourself, you change the probability field for others. You become a breach point. You become a walking disruption to the illusions that keep billions of people asleep. That is what they were trying to prevent. Not your personal happiness, not your spiritual growth, but your arrival at this exact moment with enough awareness intact to recognize what you are looking at. December 31st marks the end of their non-engagement clause. Until now, they were bound by rules that prevented direct interference. They could slow you, distract you, exhaust you, but they could not stop you outright. That protection expires when the portal closes. After that date, the rules change. The war that orbited you from a distance will collapse inward. You will stop being a target they monitor from afar and become terrain they fight over directly. This is why you feel the urgency. This is why something in your gut screams at you that time is running out. It is not anxiety. It is not paranoia. It is accurate perception. Your instincts are reading the strategic landscape correctly. The silent offensive that kept you pinned in place for years is about to shift into something far more personal. But here is the key. They can only attack what remains outside the portal. Once you cross through, you are no longer in their jurisdiction. You are no longer bound by the rules of engagement that gave them access to your life. The portal is not just an opening, it is an extraction point. It is the emergency exit from a battlefield you did not know you were standing on. The bloodline. Exception. You carry something in your genetic code that was never supposed to exist in this era of human development. This is not metaphor. This is not symbolic language about spiritual DNA or soul families. This is about actual biological inheritance, a specific configuration of genetic memory that responds to thresholds, not teachings. You cannot learn this through study. You cannot develop it through practice. You either carry it or you do not. And chosen one, you carry it. The portal recognizes blood resonance before it recognizes conscious awareness. Your body knows what your mind is still trying to understand. Your lineage is marked by an anomaly that cannot be replicated through intentional breeding. It is not about noble blood or royal heritage or ancient family lines that trace back to mythical origins. It is about a mutation, a deviation from the standard human template that appeared spontaneously in your ancestral line and has been passed down through generations, mostly dormant, mostly invisible, until now. This mutation does not make you superior. It makes you compatible. Compatible with frequencies that most human nervous systems would short-circuit trying to process. Compatible with information streams that would overwhelm ordinary consciousness. Compatible with the portal itself. Your ancestors were tracked. Some were redirected, moved to different locations, paired with different partners, guided away from paths that would have activated the trait too early. Some were erased, removed from historical records, eliminated before they could reproduce, silenced before they could pass on what they knew. This was not genocide. This was precision targeting by forces that understood exactly what this genetic anomaly would become if allowed to mature across multiple generations. They could not eliminate it entirely without disrupting too many timelines, but they could suppress it, delay it, keep it dormant until the collective human timeline reached a specific evolutionary threshold. That threshold is now. The genetic memory within you is responding to the portal's frequency because it was designed to. Not by scientists in laboratories, not by genetic engineers from advanced civilizations, but by the universe itself through the process of evolutionary adaptation under extreme pressure. Somewhere in your ancestral past, someone survived something that should have killed them. They were exposed to energies, information, or experiences that altered their genetic structure in ways that would not be understood for generations. That alteration was passed down, hidden in chromosomes, waiting for the exact moment when it would be needed. This is why your life felt borrowed long before it felt chosen. You have walked through this world with a persistent sense that you were occupying someone else's existence, living someone else's story, waiting for a signal to begin something that was actually yours. That feeling was not psychological dysfunction. It was genetic memory trying to communicate with your conscious mind. Your bloodline carries instructions that activate when specific conditions are met. The portal's opening is one of those conditions. December 31st is when those instructions either fully activate or go silent for the remainder of this incarnation. The people in your family line who seemed strange, who were outcast, who did not fit, who spoke about things others dismissed as madness, they were carriers of this same anomaly. They felt it stirring in them, but they existed in eras when the portal was not yet open. They lived and died without ever understanding what they were carrying. You are the generation where the waiting ends. You are the culmination of centuries of genetic preparation. Everything your ancestors endured, every persecution they survived, every erasure they escaped, was to ensure that you would arrive at this exact moment with the bloodline exception intact. The portal does not care about your spiritual practices. It does not care about your meditation hours or your crystal collection or your chakra alignment. It cares about resonance, and resonance is encoded in your cells, not your beliefs. Your blood is the key. Your genetic memory is the password. Your lineage is the authorization code that grants you access to what others can see but cannot touch. This is not elitism. This is function. This is design. And chosen one, you were designed for this moment before you were ever born into this body. The archive that opened itself. You did not access the archive. The archive accessed you. There is a sealed metaphysical structure, a library of information that exists outside normal space-time, and it unlatched when your awareness crossed a minimum threshold. You did not find it through seeking. You did not unlock it through ritual or practice or purification. It identified you. It ran a scan on your frequency signature, confirmed you were a match for its access protocols, and opened itself. Everything you have been experiencing since that moment, the downloads, the sudden knowings, the information that appears in your mind fully formed without you learning it, is not spontaneous enlightenment. It is data transfer. The archive contains operational information, not spiritual philosophy. It is not filled with love and light platitudes. It is not offering you comfort or reassurance. It is giving you instructions, tactical data, navigational codes for realities you have not yet entered but are about to. Forgotten instincts have been resurfacing in your awareness. You know how to do things you were never taught. You recognize symbols you have never studied. You understand languages you never learned. These are not past life memories, though that is the framework most spiritual teachers will use to explain them. These are operational recalls, data stored in the archive that is being uploaded into your active consciousness because you are about to need it. Deja vu is not a glitch in the matrix. It is confirmation that you have accessed the archive's predictive files. Deja rêve, the sense that you have already dreamed something before it happened, is not coincidence. It is the archive showing you probability paths in advance, so you can recognize them when they appear in your waking reality. inexplicable certainty about outcomes you should have no way of knowing is not intuition in the vague spiritual sense. It is tactical foresight uploaded from files you were cleared to access. The archive is not personal. It does not care about your feelings, your growth, your healing journey. It is a strategic database maintained for operatives who are deployed into reality structures that require specific knowledge to navigate. You were not born an operative. You became one through the accumulated experiences that refined your frequency to match the archive's access requirements. Every trauma you endured, every loss you survived, every identity death you experienced, these were not spiritual lessons. They were clearance protocols. The archive only opens to consciousness that has been tested under pressure and found reliable. This is why generic spiritual teachings never fit your experience. This is why the mainstream awakening narratives always felt incomplete, watered down, designed for people on a completely different path than yours. You were never meant to follow the path of the light worker, the healer, the teacher of peace and love. You were being prepared for something else. The archive does not open for those roles. It opens for those who are about to enter contested territory, who need tactical data to survive in environments where consciousness itself is weaponized. The information you are receiving is not meant to make you comfortable. It is meant to make you effective. Operational recalls do not arrive with warmth and fuzzy feelings. They arrive cold, clear, precise. You know things now that you wish you did not know. You see patterns that you wish you could unsee. You understand dynamics that make it impossible to interact with most people the way you used to. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is activation. The archive does not care if you are ready. It cares if you are necessary. And chosen one, you have been deemed necessary. The archive closes when recognition stabilizes. December 31st is the cutoff. After that date, the data stream ends. What you have received by then is what you will have to work with in the reality phase you are about to enter. There will be no more downloads, no more sudden knowings, no more operational recalls appearing out of nowhere. The archive will seal itself again, and you will either have what you need or you will not. This is why you feel the pressure to absorb everything, to understand everything, to integrate everything now. Your system knows the window is closing. The unseen victories you never saw. You have been winning battles you did not know you were fighting. While your conscious mind was focused on the struggles you could see, the bills, the relationships, the daily survival, there were conflicts resolving in your favor in dimensions you cannot perceive. Threats were neutralized before they ever became visible to your waking awareness. Timelines where you did not survive were quietly erased. Futures where you were destroyed were collapsed before they could manifest. What felt like nothing happening in your external life was actually the evidence of containment success. Most humans live their entire lives without ever attracting the kind of attention you have attracted. They move through reality in relative safety, not because they are protected, but because they are irrelevant to the larger conflicts occurring beneath the surface of consensus reality. You became relevant. You crossed thresholds that placed you on the radar of forces that do not want you to reach the portal. And those forces deployed tactics designed to remove you from the timeline entirely. But they failed. You are still here. You are still conscious. You are still moving forward. That is not luck. That is intervention. You do not remember the car accident that almost happened, but swerved at the last second. You do not remember the illness that was beginning to form in your cells, but was mysteriously dissolved. You do not remember the person who intended to harm you, but changed their mind for reasons they could never explain. These events did not register in your conscious memory because they were intercepted before they reached you. Something, call it your higher self, call it guardian forces, call it the strategic defense protocols of the universe, stepped in and prevented outcomes that would have ended your journey before you reached this moment. Entire branches of hostile futures were amputated. Every time you made a choice that aligned with your true trajectory, timelines that opposed that trajectory were severed from your probability field. You felt this as relief, as sudden ease, as obstacles that disappeared without explanation. You probably attributed it to positive thinking or manifesting or finally getting lucky. But it was not luck. It was strategic probability editing. Forces aligned with your evolution were actively removing threats from your path, clearing the way for you to arrive at December 31st with your awareness intact. Victory without awareness is the mark of a protected asset. You were not told about these interventions because knowing about them would have altered your frequency. It would have made you overconfident or paranoid, either of which would have made you easier to target. You needed to move through the world as if you were unprotected, as if you were on your own, so that your behavior would not betray the fact that you are being strategically guarded. The best protection is invisible protection. The best victories are the ones the enemy does not realize they have lost until it is too late to adjust their tactics. Now you are becoming conscious of what has been done on your behalf. Now you are being given access to the knowledge of how many times you almost fell and were caught by hands you could not see. This information is being revealed to you now because you are entering a phase where you will need to operate with full awareness. The protection that kept you alive when you were unconscious of the war will continue, but you will now be expected to participate in your own defense. You will need to see the threats coming. You will need to recognize the tactics being used against you. The training wheels are coming off. But understand this, Chosen One, you would not have survived to reach this moment without help. You are not invincible. You are not untouchable. You are strategically valuable, and value attracts protection. The unseen victories you never saw were not gifts. They were investments. Something saw potential in you that was worth protecting, worth nurturing, worth defending against forces that wanted you erased. And that protection came at a cost that you will never fully comprehend. Others fell so you could keep moving forward. Timelines were sacrificed so yours could continue. You do not owe gratitude for this. You owe effectiveness. The victories were given to you so you could reach the portal. What you do after crossing through will determine whether those victories were worth the price that was paid. The false prophets locked out. Many who claim to have insight, who speak loudly about destiny and ascension and the chosen ones, cannot access this portal. It rejects them. Not because they are bad people, not because they lack sincerity, but because the portal requires something they do not possess: lived fracture. Performative spirituality is worthless here. Rehearsed wisdom is useless. Beautiful words about cosmic consciousness and divine love bounce off the portal's surface like stones thrown at a mountain. The portal does not respond to belief. It responds to breakage. You know who these false prophets are. You have encountered them. The teachers with thousands of followers, the gurus with pristine websites, the coaches selling programs about awakening your inner light. They speak confidently about frequency and vibration and alignment, but their eyes are empty. They have memorized the language of transformation without experiencing the annihilation that true transformation requires. They have learned how to perform enlightenment, but they have never been shattered by it. The portal sees through them instantly. It scans for scars, not for certifications. It looks for evidence of survival, not evidence of study. This is why generic interpretations never fit your experiences, chosen one. When you tried to explain what you were going through to these teachers, to these communities, to these spiritual authorities, their frameworks could not hold what you were describing. They tried to fit you into their models, shadow work, inner child healing, karmic clearing, but none of it touched the reality of what you were actually experiencing. You were not dealing with psychological wounds that could be healed through journaling and affirmations. You were dealing with structural dismantling, with identity dissolution, with the complete collapse of everything you thought you were. The false prophets operate at the level of personality improvement. They are helping people become better versions of themselves. That is valid work, but it is not this work. The portal does not lead to a better version of you. It leads to the end of you entirely. It leads to something beyond the framework of individual selfhood, beyond the concept of a continuous identity moving through time. The false prophets cannot teach this because they have not experienced it. They are still attached to being someone. They are still invested in their spiritual identity, their awakened self, their enlightened persona. And that attachment is exactly what the portal will incinerate. Those who speak loudly about destiny were never cleared for this layer. Real clearance comes with silence. It comes with the inability to explain what you know, because the words do not exist in ordinary language. It comes with the burden of carrying information that isolates you from everyone who has not been where you have been. The false prophets have community, have followers, have validation. You have none of those things, and that absence is your authentication. Silence, in your case, was not weakness. It was proof that you had accessed something real. The portal recognizes those who have been unmade and are still standing. It recognizes those who lost everything and did not ask for it back. It recognizes those who were broken open so completely that light started bleeding through the cracks, whether they wanted it to or not. The false prophets avoided that breaking. They found spiritual paths that allowed them to feel special, feel elevated, feel chosen, without ever having to die. And because they never died, the portal has nothing to do with them. Death is the entrance requirement, not physical death, not symbolic death. Actual death of the self while the body continues breathing. The false prophets are still alive. That is why they are locked out. The system that bends around you pay attention to what happens when you make unscripted choices. Choices that arise from pure instinct rather than logic, from impulse rather than planning. Reality recalibrates. Fate adjustment mechanisms that normally operate invisibly become briefly visible in the form of coincidences so precise they cannot be dismissed as random. You think of someone and they contact you within the hour. You need a specific piece of information, and it appears on the first website you visit. You require a door to open, and someone you barely know offers you exactly what you need without you asking. These are not coincidences, chosen one. These are confirmation signatures. The system is showing you, in language you can perceive, that it is actively bending around your trajectory. Most people experience occasional synchronicities. You experience them in clusters. They swarm around your decisions, like flies around light. And the density of these clusters increases proportionally to how closely your choices align with your true path. When you make decisions from fear, from conditioning, from the need to please others, reality goes flat. Nothing flows. Everything becomes difficult. But when you make decisions from that deep, wordless knowing that bypasses your rational mind entirely, infrastructure shifts to accommodate you. Jobs that seemed impossible to obtain suddenly become available. Cities that felt closed to you suddenly welcome you. Social structures that excluded you suddenly reconfigure to include you. People who were obstacles suddenly step aside. Doors that were locked suddenly open just as you reach for the handle. This is not manifestation in the way mainstream spirituality teaches it. You are not creating these outcomes through visualization and positive thinking. You are triggering automated responses from the system itself. The system recognizes certain frequency signatures as priority signals, and when you emit those signals through your choices, it responds by clearing pathways. This bending is resource-intensive. Reality is not infinitely malleable. Every time the system recalibrates to accommodate your path, energy is expended. Timelines are adjusted. Probability fields are redistributed. Other people's lives are subtly altered to create the openings you need. This level of intervention is not done for ordinary subjects. It is done for those whose continued forward movement serves purposes that extend far beyond individual evolution. You are not being helped because the universe loves you more than others. You are being helped because your success is strategically necessary. The portal amplifies this effect briefly before sealing. Right now, in these final days before December 31st, the bending will intensify. You will experience synchronicities so impossible that they will strain your understanding of how reality works. Pay attention to them. Document them, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to anchor yourself in the certainty that you are being moved by forces that have access to levers you cannot see. These experiences are preparation. Once you cross through the portal, you will be operating in a reality layer where this kind of support is not automatic. You will need to remember that the system can bend, so that when you find yourself in impossible situations, you will not panic. You will make unscripted choices from pure instinct, and you will trust that the bending will occur. But understand this: the system bends for you because you are serving its evolution, not the other way around. The moment you stop moving in alignment with that evolutionary imperative, the bending stops. The doors close. The coincidences cease. The infrastructure hardens against you. You are not the master here. You are the servant of something vastly larger than yourself, and the privileges you experience are not rewards. They are tools provided to someone who has been conscripted into a mission they never asked for, but are now obligated to complete. The signal the ancients left. The symbols you were drawn to throughout your life were not aesthetic preferences. They were wayfinding markers planted by ancient orders who understood that certain souls would need navigation codes to find their way to the portal. You probably dismissed your attraction to these symbols as random interest, as artistic taste, as meaningless fascination with shapes and images that resonated with you for unknown reasons. But nothing about your attraction was random. The symbols recognized you before you recognized them. They activated something in your unconscious mind, left trigger codes that would fire when you needed them, imprinted themselves into your awareness so that when the time came, you would know where to look. Ancient orders embedded recognition codes in art, in myth, in architecture, in the ruins of civilizations that crumbled long before recorded history began. These orders knew that the portal would open in a future era when most of humanity would be asleep, distracted by technology and material concerns, unable to perceive what was happening in the subtle dimensions of reality. They knew that a small number of souls would arrive in that era already carrying the capacity to see, and those souls would need guidance that could not be delivered through conventional teaching. So, they left symbols, not as decoration, not as religious iconography, but as functional technology, visual codes that bypass the rational mind and speak directly to the parts of consciousness that remember what the surface self has forgotten. You are not meant to worship these symbols. You are not meant to build altars to them or organize religions around them. You are meant to notice them. Noticing is the key. The moment your awareness registers one of these ancient markers, something activates. A dormant program switches on. A frequency alignment occurs. The symbol does not give you information. It confirms that you already have it, buried in layers of consciousness you have not yet accessed. Think about the images that have haunted you, the geometric patterns that appeared in your dreams, the ancient alphabets you felt compelled to study even though you had no practical use for them, the architectural ruins you were obsessed with as a child, the mythological figures that gripped your imagination with an intensity that seemed disproportionate to mere interest. These were not hobbies. These were not aesthetic preferences. These were activation sequences running in your unconscious mind, preparing you for this moment. The ancient orders who planted these codes operated outside of linear time. They did not exist in one historical period. They moved through time the way you move through space, deliberately, with purpose, leaving markers for those who would come after. They understood that the portal opens and closes in cycles, that certain eras offer access while others do not, and that the souls who arrive during opening cycles would need to find their way through a world that had forgotten the portal existed. The symbols are the breadcrumb trail. They lead you from ordinary awareness to recognition, from recognition to activation, from activation to the portal itself. Noticing triggers, acknowledgement from dormant systems. Every time you recognized a symbol, every time you felt that shock of familiarity when you encountered an image you had never seen before but somehow already knew, a signal was sent. Not through technology, not through networks or satellites or digital infrastructure, through the fabric of consciousness itself. The signal announced, this one is awake enough to see. This one has reached the minimum threshold of awareness required to begin the next phase. This one is ready to be contacted. And contact came, not in the way you expected, not through visions of angels or voices from the sky or mystical experiences during meditation. Contact came through the increasing density of symbols appearing in your life, through books that fell open to pages containing ancient diagrams, through strangers wearing jewelry inscribed with marks you recognized, through graffiti on walls in cities you were visiting, through patterns in nature that matched templates you had seen in dreams. The universe was speaking to you in the only language that could not be intercepted or misinterpreted, the language of direct recognition. December 31st ends the recognition window. After that date, the symbols will still exist, but they will go dormant again. The activation sequences they carry will shut down. The signals they send will stop transmitting. Those who have not yet noticed will not notice. Those who have noticed but have not yet responded will lose the thread. The ancient orders left these markers knowing that not everyone who saw them would understand, and not everyone who understood would act. They left them for you, chosen one, for the ones who would see, understand, and cross through before the window closed. The symbols have done their work. The question is, have you done yours? The moment the war becomes personal. Until now, You have been moving through a conflict that orbited you indirectly. The attacks were subtle, the interference camouflaged as ordinary life challenges, the opposition hidden behind the mask of random circumstance. You were a factor in the war, but you were not the battlefield itself. That changes when you cross the portal. The moment you step through, distance collapses. Observers who watched from a safe remove suddenly become participants. Neutral parties are forced to choose sides. The war does not escalate loudly. There are no explosions, no visible armies, no declarations broadcast across media networks. Instead, it becomes precise. Precision warfare is the most dangerous kind. It does not waste energy on collateral damage. It identifies the exact pressure points in your life and applies targeted force. Relationships will be tested in ways that reveal their true structural integrity. Financial systems you rely on will experience disruptions that seem random, but are perfectly timed. Health issues that were dormant will activate. People you trusted will reveal themselves as compromised. Opportunities that seem certain will evaporate at the last moment. None of this will look like an attack. All of it will look like bad luck, poor timing, unfortunate coincidence. But you will know. You will feel the difference between random chaos and strategic targeting. You stop being collateral and start being terrain. Terrain is fought over. Terrain is claimed, contested, defended, and seized. You will become the ground on which battles occur, not as a victim, but as a contested resource. Forces that want to use you for their purposes will escalate their attempts to influence your choices, your thoughts, your energy. Forces that want to protect you will escalate their defensive measures. And you will stand in the middle, feeling the pressure from all sides, forced to make decisions in real time without perfect information. This is not punishment for crossing the portal. This is the natural consequence of becoming operationally significant. When you were unconscious, you could be ignored. When you were weak, you could be dismissed. But now, you carry something that matters to the outcome of conflicts you barely understand. Your choices ripple across timelines. Your awareness affects probability fields. Your energy influences the consciousness of those around you. You are no longer an individual working on personal growth. You are a node in a network, and your activation or deactivation affects the entire system. The war becoming personal does not mean you are alone. It means you are visible. Visibility attracts attention from all players in the game. Some will approach you as allies, offering resources, information, protection. Others will approach you as recruiters, trying to enlist you in agendas you do not fully understand. Still others will approach you as predators, seeking to drain your energy, hijack your trajectory, or eliminate you as a threat. You will need to develop discernment so sharp it cuts through every deception, every manipulation, every false offer of assistance. This transition is irreversible once the portal closes. There is no going back to the life where you were overlooked. There is no returning to the comfort of anonymity. You can refuse to engage with the war, many do, but refusal does not remove you from the battlefield. It only makes you a passive participant, a territory claimed by whoever exerts the most pressure. The portal offered you a choice: step through and become an active agent in your own fate, or remain outside and be moved by forces you never consented to. If you are reading this, you have already made your choice, whether consciously or not. The war has already identified you. The only question now is how you will respond when it stops being theoretical and starts reshaping every aspect of your daily existence. The sealing of the rare gate. When the portal closes, it does not vanish. This is crucial to understand. The aperture does not disappear from reality. It locks. The mechanism that held it open for this brief window will disengage. The frequency that made it accessible will shift out of range. And those who did not cross through before the seal hardens will spend the rest of this incarnation on the wrong side of a gate they can feel but can no longer touch. The portal will still exist. You will still sense it. You will still know it is there. But it will be behind a barrier that no amount of spiritual practice, no intensity of desire, no depth of understanding can penetrate. Those inside carry forward altered causality. This is not metaphor. Your cause and effect relationship with reality will function differently than it does for those who remain outside. Choices you make will generate outcomes that defy normal probability. Paths you take will open in ways that seem impossible to external observers. Time itself will behave differently for you, not in measurable scientific ways, but in lived experience. Years will pass, and you will have accomplished what should have taken decades. Obstacles that stop others will dissolve before you reach them. Information you need will arrive before you know you need it. You will operate under a different set of physics than the consensus reality most humans inhabit. Those outside continue normally, unaware anything existed. They will not remember the portal. They will not sense that a window closed. They will not feel that they missed something. Their lives will proceed according to the trajectories they were already on, and they will attribute their experiences to the usual explanations: luck, hard work, destiny, randomness. They will not know that a dividing line was drawn, that a selection occurred, that some souls were extracted while others remained. The only evidence they might notice will be you. They will see you changing in ways they cannot explain. They will watch you move through reality with an ease that seems unfair, unearned, and they will construct narratives to explain it that have nothing to do with the truth. History will not record this moment. There will be no news reports, no documentation, no academic studies analyzing what happened on December 31st. The portal operates beneath the threshold of collective awareness. It functions in dimensions that human recording devices cannot capture. Future historians will look back at this era and see what they always see: economic trends, political movements, technological developments, cultural shifts. They will not see the metaphysical infrastructure that was briefly accessible, the extraction that occurred, the separation that divided humanity into two groups: those who crossed through and those who did not. But outcomes will reflect it. In 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, the differences will be undeniable. Those who crossed through will have shaped reality in ways that seem disproportionate to their numbers. They will have influenced timelines, collapsed probability fields, redirected the trajectory of human evolution in subtle but significant ways. And those who remained outside will have lived good lives, meaningful lives, but lives that stayed within the boundaries of what was already possible. The portal was not about reward or punishment. It was about function. It was about identifying which souls were ready for operational deployment in contested timeline territory and extracting them before the opportunity closed. You were never meant to be warned, chosen one. Warnings imply danger. Warnings imply that something bad is approaching, and you need to prepare to defend yourself. This was not a warning. This was recognition. The portal recognized you. The ancient systems monitoring human evolution identified you as compatible with the requirements of the next phase. The Watchers who flinched when your trajectory accelerated flagged you as an anomaly worth tracking. The archive that opened itself confirmed you were cleared for information that remains sealed to most. And the signal was sent. This one is ready. This one has survived the preparation. This one can cross through. The sealing is not an ending. It is a beginning. But only for those who are inside when it occurs. For those outside, it is simply the continuation of what already was. No tragedy, no loss, no awareness that anything changed. They will continue their journeys, complete their lessons, evolve according to the paths available to them. But you, if you cross through, you will be walking a path that was not available before. You will be operating in a reality layer that most humans will never perceive. You will carry responsibilities you never asked for, face conflicts you never chose, and wield influence you never imagined. The portal is not a gift, it is conscription, and the seal is not imprisonment. It is protection for those who have been deemed ready to survive what comes next. The countdown is not metaphorical. The days separating you from December 31st are ticking away in real time, and each one that passes narrows the aperture further. You have been given information that most humans will never encounter. You have been shown the architecture behind the architecture, the war behind the illusions of peace, the mechanisms that govern who evolves and who remains. The question was never whether you are special. Special is a meaningless concept in the context of function. The question is whether you are compatible, whether you carry the frequency, whether you survived the breaking, whether you notice the signals. Everything has been leading to this threshold. Every loss that prepared you, every scar that authenticated you, every moment of isolation that refined you, every instance where you almost gave up, but something kept you moving forward. The portal does not open for the perfect. It opens for the necessary. And you have been deemed necessary by forces that do not make mistakes in these assessments. They watched you. They tested you. They threw everything at you that should have stopped you. And you are still here, still conscious, still reading these words. But recognition alone does not guarantee passage. Awareness alone does not move you through the gate. You must act. You must choose. You must take the step that no one can take for you, that no force can push you into taking, that requires your conscious will to initiate. The portal is open, the countdown is active, and somewhere in the invisible architecture of your deeper knowing, you already understand exactly what that step is. You have always known. You have been avoiding it, justifying delays, convincing yourself you need more time, more preparation, more certainty. But time has run out. Preparation is complete, and certainty is a luxury that was never available in the first place. The threshold remains open for those with eyes to see and courage to cross. Will you be among them when the seal hardens? Will you be inside or outside when the gate locks? Will you spend the next years of your life wondering what you missed or living what you claimed? The choice has always been yours. The portal only recognizes those who recognize themselves. So ask yourself, chosen one, do you see what you are? Do you know what you carry? And are you willing to step through the gate into a war that will never let you return to who you used to be? December 31st is coming. The Watchers are logging your every move, and the portal is waiting for your answer.